welcome to episode 26 of the Mr. Douglass Sports Show. I am your host as always, Corey Douglas. And wow, this is the first time in over a month that I am recording an episode after a Cowboys win. So the Cowboys go to Minnesota, snap Minnesota's 3-game winning streak, snap their losing streak, and with a 31-28 win. And I've been on record, obviously, these last few shows, and I've been talking about season's over, I'm on Team Tank, lose the remainder of the games. But I can't help but be so mad at this win. And the main reason I'm not really upset with this win and the Cowboys messing up the draft pick, or messing up their draft pick, is, for one, they didn't drop that far in the standings. And if they lose to Washington, they'll be right back in the driver's seat of controlling the number 3 pick. But at the same time, I'm looking at the contributors to this win. So when I look at CeeDee Lamb making one of the catches of the year, you look at Dalton Schultz catching the game-winning touchdown. You talk about Tony Pollard, his 42-yard run. You talk about DeMarcus Lawrence making a play. You talk about Donovan Wilson forcing a couple more takeaways. You look at the young contributors on this team are responsible for that win. So I've never been about stunning the young players' growth and not wanting them to perform and continue to develop in their careers. Now, would I like them not to win that game on Sunday against Minnesota? Of course, because I think that you're able to get more blue-collar talent in this organization, and going forward, it sets you up for longer-term success once you get all your guys back healthy. But at the same time, with that win, the Cowboys throw themselves right back into the thick of the division. But before I jump too far into this episode, I want to send my condolences to Marcus Paul, who is the strength and conditioning coach for the Dallas Cowboys, and his family. Marcus Paul was rushed to the hospital early Tuesday morning from the Star in Frisco. There's been various reports at this point. The only thing that's been confirmed is that Paul is currently in the hospital. He's undergoing tests. So I definitely want to extend my condolences to him. And hopefully, he can pull through and continue this fight and continue this journey in life. I know the Dallas Cowboys players, they love this guy. And, he's a real big part of what they do inside the facility. So once again, my condolences to Marcus Paul and his family. Keep fighting, Marcus. The Cowboys, the entire Cowboys family is with you. But I definitely wanted to do that before I got too far into this episode. So on last week's episode, I told you guys I was going to break down the NFC East remaining schedules for all 4 teams to try to determine who's going to win this division. So all 4 teams currently sit with 3 wins. The Eagles are in first place by half a game due to the tie against Cincinnati early in the season. So they are 3-6-1. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 teams are 3-7. So while the Eagles are in first place, I am almost 99% sure that the Eagles will not win this division. When I look at their schedule, there's just not a chance in hell that I think they have the 3 wins necessary that it's going to take to win this division. So I'm going to throw them out, and I'm going to break down their schedule just real quick and tell you exactly how their season is going to shake out. So when you look at their game this week against Seattle, it's on Monday Night Football. It's at home in Philadelphia. But I don't see how Seattle loses this game or Philadelphia wins this game. So I am dropping the Eagles to 3-7-1. But then the Eagles go on the road to Green Bay. And while Green Bay has struggled against some of the physical teams, if you can run the ball against Green Bay, you have a real good shot of winning. I don't see the Eagles going on the road and winning in Lambeau Field for the 2nd straight season. So that drops them to 3-8-1 at that point. Then the Eagles return home, take on the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints right now have the best record in the NFC. I'm not sure exactly the injury status of Drew Brees. I don't think he'll be back by that game. But regardless of the fact, I think the Saints defense will be too much for the Eagles and Carson Wentz, and they'll lose that game as well. And then Philadelphia, they go on the road to Arizona. I see that as another loss in week 15. Then they come to Dallas. I think they lose that game. They should have lost the game in Philadelphia a couple weeks back, but we all know it didn't happen because Ben DiNucci was starting quarterback for the Cowboys. And yeah, enough said. But then the Eagles finish off at home against Washington. They lost to Washington week 1, and I think they'll be able to win that game against Washington at home in week 17. So that gives them their 4th win. So I have the Eagles going 4-11-1. Next up on this schedule breakdown is the Washington football team. Obviously, they're going to be in Dallas on Thursday for Thanksgiving. That Thanksgiving Day matchup. I have Washington losing that one, dropping to 3-8. Then Washington goes on the road to Pittsburgh. That's another loss. So that puts them at 3-9. Then they go to San Francisco, which who knows what the injury status will be at that point for San Francisco. But I am marking that down as a loss for Washington against San Francisco. Then Washington finally returns home after 3 straight games on the road. They take on the Seattle Seahawks. I have Seattle going into that one, winning that game. They then play Carolina at home. I think Washington will be able to take care of business in that one and improve their record to 4-11 headed into week 17, where I think they will lose to Philadelphia, dropping their record to 4-12. Next up, I have the team that I currently think is the best team in the NFC East, just based off what they've done the last 3 weeks before their bye week, and that's the New York Giants. Their schedule is a lot more favorable than the 2 previous teams I've mentioned, the Philadelphia Eagles and Washington football team. Starting this week, they play at Cincinnati. Obviously, that game took a big swing with Joe Burrow being out the remainder of the season. So I think the Giants will be able to beat Cincinnati. Then they go on the road again to Seattle, where I think they will lose to Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. Then they come home to play Arizona. I think they lose that game, and at that point they will be 4-9. Then they return home to take on the Cleveland Browns. And I know the Cleveland Browns, they have a good record right now, but I don't think they're very good as a team. So I do think the Giants will come away with a win at that one at home in the Meadowlands. Then the Giants go to Baltimore. And like I mentioned, who knows what the situation will be for Baltimore at that point. I'm going to say they need that game, and they will be able to win that game to send the Giants to 5-10 heading into the Week 17 showdown with the Cowboys and Giants. And I'm going to wait to predict the Cowboys-Giants game because I think that is the game that will decide the division. So the Cowboys schedule, they start this Thursday, tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon against the Washington football team. I think the Cowboys have shown me enough these last 3 games to be able to win that game at home against Washington. The Cowboys then go on the road to Baltimore on Thursday night again. I think the Cowboys will lose that one, and then at that point they will be 4-8. The Cowboys then go to Cincinnati. Joe Burrow still out, so the Cowboys will win that game. Then the last 3 games, the Cowboys will play San Francisco and Philadelphia at home before going on the road to New York. And I think they will split those 2 games by losing to San Francisco and beating Philadelphia to also be 6-9 heading into that showdown against the Giants. And I do think the Cowboys will win that Week 17 game against the Giants to win the division. They'll go 7-9. And they'll make the playoffs, and Team Tank will officially be dead at that point. So, yeah, I do think the Cowboys have kind of righted the ship. I know a couple weeks ago I said that the season was over when amongst all that locker room mess they had going on. But I think they got rid of the main culprits when they got rid of Dontari Poe and Everson Griffin and also cut Darryl Worley. So I do think the Cowboys do have enough to win this division just because the division is obviously so bad. So I've mentioned the Cowboys take on the Washington football team on Thursday night. If you remember, these teams played about 3 weeks ago. The Cowboys lost 25-3. It was Andy Dalton's second start. He gets knocked out of the game due to just a disgusting hit, and that really led to a lot of the questions about as far as how much heart this Cowboys team has and how much it lacks in that heart department. Since then, they've played really inspired football. If you go back and remember that game, the Cowboys' offensive line was just destroyed. I believe Zach Martin didn't play in that game due to a concussion suffered on Monday night against the Cardinals. So my number one key to the game is making sure the Washington front can't wreck the game like they did 3 weeks ago when these teams faced off. And I think the Cowboys took a big step in the direction to making sure the offensive line doesn't hurt them. Zach Martin moving out to right tackle really solidified the line by allowing Connor McGovern to move into right guard and Joe Looney at center. So I definitely think they used that right side of the line to their advantage against Minnesota, and I think they'll look to do the same thing on Thursday against Washington. I look for Ezekiel Elliott to have another strong performance after getting his first 100-yard game of the season. And he said after the game against Minnesota that they just really ran the ball behind Zach Martin, and that was all they had to do to be successful. And then Dalton was able to make enough throws by getting the ball out quick, which I think is a strategy to limit that Washington pass rush this week as well. Number two is this is something that no team, including the Cowboys, has done, especially the last 3 weeks, and that is containing the big play for Terry McLaurin. If you allow him to blow the top off the defense, it's going to be ugly for your defense. We saw what Jefferson did against for Minnesota. You saw what Thielen did. So secondary is a huge issue for the Cowboys, and they'll have to limit those big plays if they want to come away with their second straight win. And then my third and final key to the game is getting some pressure on Alex Smith. So if you don't remember, Alex Smith a couple seasons ago suffered one of the most catastrophic injuries that you can suffer on a football field, where pretty much his entire leg just got way out of whack. He goes through every surgery in the book. He suffered some infections during the surgery, but he is now back. But when I watch Alex Smith, he doesn't look completely comfortable in the pocket or when he's facing pressure. And I think that part of that is obviously the injury and going through something that catastrophic and coming back from that. He's still not fully comfortable. I think if the Cowboys can get after him, you can make him think a lot and maybe make him make quicker decisions than he really wants to, and that could lead to some takeaways. Alright, so I do have some NBA coming up here in a little bit. But before I get to that, I am going to go ahead and go over my weekly NFL power rankings. There's no change to the top three. So I still have Kansas City after a tough road win against the Raiders, who seem to have their number this season. But Patrick Mahomes is able to be Patrick Mahomes and come away with a tight win. Number two, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers still. They come away with a dominating win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. No surprise there. Number three is still the New Orleans Saints. And what they did, just suffocating the Atlanta offense on Sunday, was really impressive. And, of course, they are still without Drew Brees. And after he suffers 11 rib fractures. So he'll be back at some point later this season. But I do think the Saints are the third best team in football and the best team in the NFC as the standings show. But once you start talking about the 4 and 5 teams in the league right now, it is a complete toss-up. So Green Bay this past week, they blow a 14-point lead to the Colts in Indy. They dropped to 7-3. You have the Seahawks. They are able to come away with a win against Arizona on Thursday night. I think Seattle's defense played a lot better than they have been to this point in the season. So I have them at number 4. But number 5, I'm going to stick with the Green Bay Packers at this point. Just because I can't trust Tampa Bay at this point. It's every couple of weeks, every other week, they are coming away with just a nasty performance. And I think a lot of that has to do with Bruce Arians and the type of coach he is. And I think it's time that we start looking at Bruce Arians as a coach. So, all the jokes were funny when Jameis Winston was throwing 30 picks, throwing 30 touchdowns. Bruce Arians was coming out in the media and criticizing Winston for his decision-making. But now I'm looking at the decision-making of the head coach and the play calling with Byron Leftwich. They are throwing down the field way too much. Tom Brady is not capable of throwing the ball down the field like as much as they do right now. If you look at the last 3 weeks for Tom Brady, He is 0 of 19. He hasn't completed a single deep ball these last 3 weeks. Yet Bruce Arians and Brian Leftwich keep dialing up the deep ball, and I don't understand it. So that's why the Buccaneers cannot be trusted, and why I am going to trust Aaron Rodgers just a tad bit more as my number 5 team in this week's power rankings. Alright, and to round out today's NFL portion of this episode, we're going to go to my Week 12 NFL picks. And Week 11 was a week to forget as far as picks go for me. I go 6-8, which drops my record overall to 104-56 for the season. There's no NFL teams on bye weeks this week, so we have a full 16-game slate, starting with 3 games on Thursday. First game up is the Houston Texans going to Detroit to take on the Lions. Give me the Houston Texans to come away with the win there. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Baltimore Ravens. Give me the Las Vegas Raiders to take care of the Atlanta Falcons. I really like what I saw from Oakland on Sunday night, even in a loss. Give me the Buffalo Bills to take care of the Chargers. Give me the New York Giants to take care of the Bengals. Give me the Cleveland Browns to go on the road and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Jacksonville hasn't won since week 1, which is incredible when they beat the Colts. Speaking of the Colts, give me the Colts to beat the Titans again. These teams just matched up last Thursday. They're facing each other this Sunday. Give me the Dolphins and Tua, maybe? Or will it be Fitzpatrick? But regardless, give me the Dolphins to beat the Jets. Give me the Minnesota Vikings to beat the Carolina Panthers. Give me the New England Patriots to upset the Arizona Cardinals. Give me the New Orleans Saints to go to Denver, the Mile High City, and come away with the win there. Give me the Los Angeles Rams to beat the 49ers as a bit of payback for what San Francisco did to them on national TV just a couple weeks back. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs to go and beat the Tampa Bay Bucks and Tom Brady, sending the Bucks to 7-4. And then on Sunday night, give me the Packers to beat the Bears. Monday night, give me the Seahawks over the Eagles. And then circling back around to tomorrow afternoon in Arlington, give me the Cowboys to beat the Washington football team. And that concludes my Week 12 NFL picks. Alright, so I did want to touch on the NBA just real quick because I think I have 3 definite winners so far since free agency opened on Friday. And I think you have to start with what the Los Angeles Lakers have done. Yeah, they lost Rondo. Yes, they lost Danny Green. They traded JaVale McGee. Dwight Howard left. But the way they have replaced those guys with Marc Gasol, who is a bit washed, I think, at this point, but the Lakers aren't going to be asking him to do much. So adding him, adding Montrezl Harrell to solidify that bench unit, and then added Dennis Schroeder, who can start or come off the bench, is another creator to where LeBron can play off the ball a little bit more than he did this past season. And then adding a guy like Wesley Matthews to replace the Danny Green. They're definite winners so far in NBA free agency. Then you slide down to the Portland Trailblazers and what they've done. They, of course, keep Melo. They bring back Enes Kanter in a trade. They add Robert Covington, who I love as an NBA player. You talk about three-point shooting, talk about defense, just toughness, size on the perimeter to go along with Dame and CJ. And then they bring back Rodney Hood. They added a lot of depth, and I think for a season that was destroyed by injuries last season, I don't think you'll see Portland at the number 8 seed again this upcoming season. You'll see them back in the top 4 of the Western Conference. And then my last winner has come from the East, and that's the Atlanta Hawks. I love what they've done so far with adding Rondo, that veteran presence, if his head's on straight, because obviously what we got here in Dallas was not the Rondo with his head on straight, and it blew up in our faces. But then you add Danilo Gallinari, bring some shooting along with Trae Young, and then you add Chris Dunn. He's really turned into a really solid NBA defender. And then if they can secure Bogdan Bogdanovic, who Sacramento might not, I don't know. They might match the offer for Bogdanovic. But if the Hawks are able to secure him, I think you look at a really solid offseason. And especially when you talk about the Eastern Conference, they could make the playoffs as soon as this year. And the most important thing for the Hawks at this point is to make sure that Trae Young is happy, and you surround Trae Young with talent, so that way he wants to stay there because he thinks he has a shot at winning. I'm going to get more into Mavs-centric stuff going forward on some later shows. But this concludes episode 26 of the Mr. Douglas Sports Show. Until next time, salute and happy Thanksgiving.